2026 is already going absolutely crazy on Steam. From indie record breakers to AAA monsters, here are the 25 releases defining the year. Starting with number 1, Slay the Spire 2 is without question the biggest Steam story of 2026 so far. Megacrit launched this indie deck builder into early access in March, and it exploded immediately, peaking at over 570,000 concurrent players and selling an estimated 5.3 million copies in its first month alone, generating over $100 million in revenue. 5 characters, including 2 brand new ones, a co-op mode for up to 4 players, a timeline lore system, card modifiers, new relics, and 0 microtransactions, all for $25. The community had some tensions around early balance patches, but the developers handled feedback with transparency and care. Landing at number 2, Resident Evil Requiem launched on February 27th and immediately shattered franchise records, peaking at over 344,000 concurrent players on Steam, more than double what RE4 Remake achieved. You play as 2 characters across intertwined storylines, with FBI analyst Grace Ashcroft delivering some of the most genuinely terrifying atmospheric horror the series has ever produced, while Leon Kennedy handles the action-heavy set pieces fans expect. Capcom nailed the sound design and environmental tension, with several sections that build dread so effectively you end up holding your breath without realizing it. One of the strongest mainline RE entries in years. Number 3 is Crimson Desert, Pearl Abyss's sprawling open-world action RPG that launched in March with one of the messiest and then most impressive turnaround stories of the year. Initial reception was rocky, with mixed reviews citing clunky controls and overwhelming systems, causing the developer's stock to dip significantly. Within days, the studio responded publicly, patched aggressively, and the Steam rating climbed from mixed all the way to very positive at remarkable speed. With over 3 million copies sold across platforms and a genuinely massive open world full of dense combat and exploration, it has become one of 2026's defining redemption arcs. At number 4, Arc Raiders from Embark Studios launched as a PvP-VE extraction shooter set on the lost colony of Tau Ceti V4, and immediately became one of the best-selling titles of early 2026. Embark brought Bungie-level gun feel to a sci-fi setting completely unlike the military realism dominating the extraction genre, and the co-op base-building elements add a strategic layer that keeps squads invested between raids. The game peaked strongly in January and has sustained a healthy player base through consistent content drops. If you enjoy extraction shooters with genuine atmosphere and responsive gunplay, this one is essential. Number 5 is Marathon, Bungie's long-awaited return to the franchise that launched in March 2026 as a PvP-VE extraction shooter with a striking sci-fi art direction that sets it apart from everything else in the genre. The gunplay carries all the weight and responsiveness you expect from Bungie, and the atmosphere is genuinely unlike anything else available right now. The game struggled with onboarding and some controversial monetization decisions at launch that pushed casual players away, but the core loop for dedicated extraction shooter fans is deeply compelling. If you are already comfortable with the genre, Marathon is one of its best offerings. Coming in at 6, Pragmata is Capcom's new sci-fi IP that launched in April 2026 and delivered a fresh combination of puzzle solving and third-person combat set aboard a lunar research station. You play as Hugh alongside android companion Diana, navigating a facility full of escalating dangers with gameplay that shifts fluidly between methodical exploration and action sequences. Capcom followed up their massive Resident Evil Requiem success with a completely different tone and genre, proving the studio is in exceptional form in 2026. The world building is intriguing, and the character dynamic between Hugh and Diana gives the game an emotional anchor that holds the experience together. Sliding into 7, Mouse PI for Hire launched in April with one of the most visually distinctive identities of any FPS in years, bringing a rubber hose 1930s animation style to first-person gunfighting in a way that is both charming and genuinely satisfying to play. You play as investigator Jack Pepper, voiced by Troy Baker, navigating cases through a stylized world that looks like a forgotten cartoon come to life. The game hit the top of the Steam Deck charts in April and impressed players and critics with how well the aesthetic and gameplay complement each other. It is one of those releases where the concept alone earns immediate attention. At 8, Replaced is the gorgeous cyberpunk 2D action platformer that had been anticipated since its visually striking reveal at E3 2021, and the April 2026 release confirmed it was worth every minute of the wait. The HD 2D pixel art style is extraordinary, and the narrative-driven gameplay delivers a dystopian story with real weight and momentum. The controls are tight, and the combat has satisfying depth without becoming overwhelming, making it accessible while still rewarding skilled play. For fans of cinematic action platformers and story-driven games with exceptional art direction, this is one of the year's must-play releases.
Number 9 is Mewgenics, the bizarre cat breeding simulator from Team Meat that launched in February and became the top-selling new Steam game of that month with 1.7 million units. Players breed and manage increasingly strange cats through a combination of strategy and procedural chaos that is as unpredictable as it sounds. The median playtime, already sitting at over 13 hours, tells you everything about how the community has embraced it. It is genuinely weird and genuinely funny in equal measure, and for players willing to lean into its unhinged premise, it delivers an absurd amount of replayability.
Coming to 10, Nioh 3 from Team Ninja launched in February 2026 and delivered another layer of the studio's signature blend of Souls-like combat and Japanese mythology. The demanding difficulty is balanced by a deeply rewarding build system and some of the most satisfying weapon mechanics in the action RPG genre. New demon mechanics and expanded lore push the series forward, while preserving everything that made the first 2 entries so compelling for genre fans. It launched alongside Resident Evil Requiem in a strong February for Steam and held its own despite the competition, building a dedicated and enthusiastic player base from day one. At 11, Vampire Crawlers from Ponkel, the developer behind Vampire Survivors, launched in April 2026 and proved the studio knows exactly how to follow up a cultural phenomenon. This dungeon-crawling roguelike trades bullet hell for deck building and card battling gameplay, landing in similar territory to Slay the Spire, but with Ponkel's signature lo-fi energy and dense mechanical charm. It topped the Steam Deck charts in April alongside Slay the Spire 2, and the community response has been overwhelmingly positive. For fans of either Ponkel's previous work or the roguelike card game genre, this is a standout release. Number 12 is Half Sword, the physics-based medieval combat game that launched in January 2026, with some technical issues, but a concept compelling enough to keep players invested regardless. You engage in brutal, momentum-driven sword fights where every swing and footstep carries real physics weight, making each encounter feel chaotic and kinetic in ways that scripted combat animations simply cannot replicate. The rough edges at launch were notable, but the core experience was strong enough to make headlines, and updates have been steadily addressing the early problems. It is a game with a vision that stands completely apart from anything else on the platform. At 13, Code Vein 2 launched in January as the follow-up to Bandai Namco's Vampire Souls-like and arrived with a premium price point that reflected the level of production value invested. The character-driven narrative, anime aesthetic, and deep customization system that defined the original return with expanded scope and refined combat mechanics. January's top revenue charts placed it among the most commercially successful new releases of the month, despite stiff competition. Fans of the original and players who enjoy narrative-driven action RPGs with strong visual identity have responded warmly, and the online co-op component gives it social staying power. Number 14 is Cairn, the survival climbing game that debuted at the end of January 2026 and hit 300,000 sales almost immediately. You scale dangerous mountain routes with a combination of careful planning, physical skill, and resource management that makes every summit feel genuinely earned. The tension of being exposed on a sheer face with limited gear is handled brilliantly, and the game's atmosphere combines quiet beauty with creeping danger in a way that feels completely fresh. It was one of January's strongest new releases and has built a steady following that continues to grow as word of mouth spreads. Coming in at 15, Deep Rock Galactic Rogue Core launched in May 2026 as the third entry in the franchise, delivering a co-op FPS roguelite that brings the beloved dwarves and the satisfying gunplay of the series into a procedurally generated format. Fans of the original Deep Rock Galactic already trust Ghost Ship games to deliver quality, and the addition of roguelite mechanics opens up a new dimension of replayability for a community that was already deeply loyal. The May launch slots it perfectly into a summer gaming window, and it is one of the most anticipated releases of the second half of the year's first stretch. At 16, Zero Parades for Dead Spies is Zayum's successor to Disco Elysium, launching in May 2026 as one of the most anticipated RPGs in years. The studio behind one of the most praised narrative RPGs ever made returns with a new setting, a new cast, and the same commitment to dense political writing and character-driven storytelling that made Disco Elysium legendary. Expectations are enormous, and the community has been watching every development closely. For players who believe games can be literature, this is the kind of release you mark on your calendar months in advance. Number 17 is LEGO Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight from TT Games, launching in May 2026 as the studio's latest entry in the beloved LEGO adventure genre. The Batman setting gives TT Games a rich universe of characters, villains, and iconic locations to work with, and the classic LEGO gameplay loop of exploration, combat, and collectible hunting remains as satisfying as ever for both longtime fans and newcomers. The family-friendly accessibility, combined with layers of content for dedicated collectors, makes it one of the most broadly appealing releases of the month, and it lands at a time when the LEGO game formula still has plenty of enthusiastic supporters. At 18, Coffee Talk Tokyo launched in May 2026 as the follow-up to the beloved visual novel series, moving the cozy coffee shop setting to Japan, where you serve drinks to both humans and yokai, navigating their own personal stories. The warmth and emotional intelligence of the writing that defined the original series carries forward into the new setting, and the Japanese folklore elements add a fresh layer of character and mythology. For fans of slow, narrative-driven games that prioritize atmosphere and character over action, this is one of the most inviting releases of the year. Number 19 is StarRupture, one of the surprise breakout hits of January 2026 that competed at the top of the Steam charts alongside Quarantine Zone, in a genuinely strong start to the year for new releases. The game carved out a strong audience with its distinct identity and became one of the defining stories of early 2026 for mid-tier PC gaming. Its performance in January demonstrated the ongoing appetite for fresh, original IP games from small and medium developers, proving that the Steam audience rewards creativity and quality, regardless of budget or marketing spend behind a release. Coming in at 20, Quarantine Zone launched in January 2026 and led the early month charts as one of the top-selling new games in units, delivering a tense survival experience that immediately found a dedicated player base. The game competed directly with StarRupture throughout January for the top position, and the back and forth between the two titles became a talking point for analysts tracking the Steam market at the start of the year. For a new IP without an established franchise behind it, the performance was exceptional and marked it as one of the more significant debut releases in recent memory. At 21, Saros launched in April 2026 as one of the month's most anticipated action titles and delivered a cinematic experience that landed on the Steam Deck charts alongside the other major April releases. The game brought a polished, high-energy approach to its genre that distinguished it from the packed April release window and earned strong early word of mouth. Its arrival alongside Replaced and Mouse PI for Hire made April one of the best months of the year for action game fans, and Saros held its own against stiff competition from both indie and larger studio releases. Number 22 is Climber Animals Together, the co-op budget title that became one of March 2026's most surprising commercial stories by matching Resident Evil Requiem in unit sales at roughly 1.2 million copies despite its near giveaway price point. The game is exactly what the title suggests, charming animal characters climbing things together in co-op, and the simplicity and accessibility of the concept clearly connected with an audience looking for something light and social to play with friends. It is the kind of release that reminds you the Steam audience is enormous and diverse, and that not every breakout hit needs a large development budget. At 23, Darwin's Paradox launched at the start of April 2026 as one of the titles that kicked off what became a very strong month for Steam releases.
The game brought a fresh take on its genre, with design decisions that stood out from the packed release window and earned early attention from both players and press. Its position at the opening of April meant it benefited from a less crowded initial launch window before the bigger releases arrived later in the month, and it built a solid player base that sustained its visibility throughout one of 2026's most competitive release months.
Number 24 is Forza Horizon 6, launching in May 2026 as Microsoft's premier open-world racing experience set across Japan, in what has been called the series' most ambitious map to date. The Tokyo and surrounding regions give the game a visual identity that is immediately distinct from previous entries, and the scale of the open world is the largest in the franchise's history. For racing game fans on PC, this is the definitive driving experience of the year, and its arrival on Steam via Microsoft's renewed PC gaming push gives it the widest possible audience. PC Gamer's early preview called the Japan map the best the series has ever produced.
And rounding out the list at 25, Windrose appeared in the April 2026 Steam Deck top charts as a new release that caught meaningful attention from the handheld PC gaming community. The game earned its spot among April's notable launches through strong design and a gameplay loop that translated particularly well to portable play, making it one of the more pleasant surprises of the month. For players who discovered it through the Steam Deck rankings, it delivered an experience that punched above the visibility it received, and its appearance on the charts is a reminder that April 2026 was one of the most creatively varied months the platform has seen this year.